It's 6 p.m.
Okay. Call the meeting to order, and we will begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically Nooksack and Lummi tribes, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. On behalf of everyone here, we want to express our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors, the Nooksack and Lummi tribes, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. Accept as a pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any changes to the agenda as written?
I think we're good to go.
Okay, I'll entertain the motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion to approve agenda is written. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then next up is good of the order.
I do have one good of the order, and this has to do with Kendall Elementary School. They're being recognized by the State Board of Education, OSBI, and the Opportunity Gap Oversight and Accountability Committee, formerly known as the Washington Achievers Awards. Remember those awards that school used to get? Well, Kendall is going to be being recognized for closing gaps between the different student groups. It could be special ed, Native American, multilingual, but they are being recognized by the State Board of Ed for doing that. And it's all based on the Washington School Improvement Framework, what we call WISA. You can Google that. You can go right to the OSPI report card and see what it says on there. But I want to congratulate Kendall Elementary and their staff and for doing some great work around closing gaps for their students. So achievement gaps. Kendall Elementary. Good to the order.
Thank you. Next up is consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the
Sir,
consent.
can I ask a question about the consent agenda before we do that? So there's 7 items on here. Do any of these impact our budget outside of what? You know, the budget information where it's a bunch of different contracts. I just want to make sure if it impacts our budget that we talk about it before we.
Well, looking forward, I think you probably I would say just our legal services, which is
Okay.
basically what we have to do every year anyway. I think the others are there, but we have some fees. Any thoughts?
Yeah, these are contract with the Northwest ESD, most of them in the Opportunity Council that we've had in the past.
Right.
We rely on the ESD for a lot of our services that we have, and they're budgeted in our budget.
They're in our budget.
They're in our budget. Okay. So including the legal services agreement.
Okay.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, next up is public comments. Anyone in the audience? If not, then the next is board comments. We will. I'll start with you, Julia.
I have nothing this evening.
Nothing for me today.
Go ahead.
I wrote so.
Nothing?
No, I do have something, but
Okay,
I'm
you're
trying
looking
to
for it.
find
That's
it.
what I was wondering. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, last time I wasn't feeling good, so I didn't do my notes, but, so
I told you guys I did the Mount Baker Wave or the Wave Scholarship things. When I read the entries and judged those over, right before the end of the school year. And one of our students from Mount Baker won one of the scholarships, and it's pretty cool scholarship. It's like 2 years of, like, covers everything for that student for, like, I don't know, welding or something like that. I can't remember what that person was gonna do. And then Allie Robinson, who is our contact with the Whatcom County Health Department. I was talking to her about the person who came and spoke in public comment about the school-based health center last week or last meeting. And she said that she could put us in touch with any other of the other school districts in the area who have had school-based health centers, if we have any questions, and kind of get in touch with their board and sort of see like what their experiences have been like. So if that's something we want to do, then we can put that on our list of to-dos. So that is it.
Yeah, thank you. Jason?
I don't have much, just personally want to thank Phil his minutes for winding down with us, and thank him for everything he did for us. He did everything we asked, very above and beyond. Personally, taught me a lot, and I just appreciate that. So I want to say thank you.
Great. And I will give us a chance to reflect on leadership for a board discussion. I didn't get a chance to let you know what I'm thinking for topic tonight, but I thought lessons we've learned in leadership and with an eye to how we will look at leadership going forward. So just a brief overview of just touch on what we've learned over the last number of months and how it might impact our view towards leadership. So for me, I met with Tyler Minch, who is, you might say chief lobbyist for OSPI, but he's heavily involved in the capital program and in particular buildings and the SCAP program. And so we reviewed the study that they're in the middle of on school construction, which he said is the 10th study they've done on school construction in the last 20 years, which is the legislature's preferred manner to do another study rather than to pay for the full amount. So, but he said the benefit of doing this study is that they said they will increase the square foot payment by $100 if OSPI completes the study satisfactorily. So I remember not too many years ago, the square foot allowance was like $120, $140 a square foot. And now Seattle School District costs are $800 a square foot. So this is something we have to keep in mind, even, with our capital budget, that rapid increase. And to put that in perspective, so you have a visual, for what we spent to build our house at that rate, we could have a house 32 square feet, one sheet of plywood in size, 4 feet by 8 feet. It'd be nice materials maybe, but it'd be 4 feet by 8 feet. So that's
Tiny house.
Yeah.
It would be what you could call it a nano house. Yeah. So I just pass it on. And then also for our next meeting, I'm scheduling Chris Hankey from the DNR to come and give us a background overview of our current, what we can expect for our current timber revenue, projections for next year's timber sales, and discuss some of the issues surrounding that. So, I'd like to have a good question and answer. Nick and Brian will also be here, and I think it's a good opportunity for us to kind of increase our understanding, but also get a better picture of what are some of the contingency, the things influencing it that we're facing, so that we get a sense of what we can reasonably expect and what might be up in the air. But the figures that he's given me for current and fiscal year 2025 timber sale look a lot better for us. The current one, we'll be finishing off our current year. We're finishing off low again at in the our net revenue would be for our operating budget in the $100,000 range for fiscal year 2025. The sales they have planned would put us in the $600,000 to $700,000 range, but you have to keep in mind that the purchasers have 3 years to harvest and they pay upon harvest. The harvests have generally been pretty fast after the sales, but there's never any guarantee, and it depends on the market. But I thought Chris can fill us in on the ins and outs, get a better sense of the flow of that at the next meeting. But I guess my main point is the figure that Brian has included in the budget for state forest revenue is conservative, I would say. So I certainly not any problem. I don't think. So, that's what I have. So next we have a public hearing on the budget. And I will open the public hearing on the budget. I think we will have the board's presentation on the budget under action items. I don't think we have a presentation of the budget we've had that in the past, but there's not another one. But so I open the public hearing on the budget. If there's anyone who wishes to speak on the budget.
Is the presentation on the budget prior to us approving the budget?
So what we'll do under action items is update the presentation on the budget. You can ask questions, and then the budget resolution is included as an action item after that. But the public hearing is a separate part of budget approval where we seek input from the public. Does that answer it?
Yeah, I guess I don't remember a public hearing before.
The public hearing is for the public in case anybody comes and has comments
And that's different than public comments.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a specific hearing, specific on the budget, and
Okay.
it's part of the budget adoption
And
process.
if no one has anything in the public has anything to say, then
If no one has anything to say, I close the public hearing and we'll go on to action items in the
I do want to remind the board that we did advertise as required, June 12th, June 20th, and again yesterday, that we were having a public hearing today for the budget.
So then next is on action items, Mount Baker Resolution 23-24-21, authorizing the issuance of a limited general obligation note. Do you want to take this one or Brian?
Yeah, real quick, this is what we've been talking about, the loan, the LGO from our county treasurer, $500,000. We don't think we're going to need it, but we wanted to position ourselves in place to have the board approve resolution just in case. It'd be plan B. So it's a $500,000 loan, LGO, 7.5%, paying it back by December 16th. So very short turnaround with that. I don't think there's anything more to it. It's pretty much, that's pretty much what it is. We just wanted to get it approved through the board just in case we needed to have that with cash flow. The cash flow looks pretty good with our end of the year resolutions. So budget.
Any questions on it?
so that's this December's.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You said, sorry, go ahead.
If we did have to take it, do we know what the total interest cost is based on the interest rate?
Yeah, less than 5 probably.
Depends on how many months.
Yeah, it's not very long. So September, October, November. So
but 7.5%.
7.5%.
500,000.
So 5 times.
Yeah, there's weird rules around.
Hmm?
There's weird rules around.
No, I don't think there's no penalties, I don't think attached to it or anything like that, so it's just.
We can repay it anytime.
Okay.
And we'll be receiving, if we need it, we'll be receiving a portion in advance from OSPI in October. We're working with them in advance of that, so we'd be able to repay it in October.
Okay. Once this is approved, no further approval from the board is needed
To run it.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is, it's prudent because if we do have a cash flow issue that sometimes can come quite unexpectedly, we're running, close there, so having this as, in addition to our interfund loan that we have.
Right.
Then this will ensure that, and coupled with the OSPI advance, this will ensure that we should not have an actual cash flow issue.
Right.
It's backup insurance in that one. Right. So if not any, entertain a motion,
Do you have a question, Danielle? Yes, I do.
okay, I'm
Sorry,
sorry,
Russ.
I didn't hear you.
I saw my finger go.
Okay,
Thank you for my
good.
question. So the board approves this, but when would the decision approximately be made to take the loan or not take the loan? It's not a foregone conclusion that we will need it. We won't take it unless we need it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and would the board be notified at least
Oh,
if that was
absolutely.
happening?
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna suggest if we do end up taking it, then just email us. So that we, so we don't wait till the next meeting. We know what's going on, but I think that should be good enough.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Any other questions? So if not, I will entertain a motion to approve Board Resolution 23-24-21.
Motion to approve resolution 23-24-21. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So the next up is Board Resolution 23-24-22, adoption of the 2024-25 budget. And I will also start with you, Phil, and Brian.
Yeah, I just want to give Brian some kudos around putting this budget together. He has dug deep into this budget and covered a lot of areas, counting areas where he's had to find things, do some research, put it all back together. He's done an excellent job doing this. He's prepared to talk about it if you need, but I feel very confident with the budget. It's a balanced budget. We got a little over $41,000 in the bottom line and the positive end of things. We do anticipate some more revenues coming in later this summer. And remember when we developed this budget, we developed at 1,448 students, and we think that enrollment is going to come higher. So we'll look at that 40 count in September, or that October 1 count in October, then make some decisions around where we are with the budget based on enrollment. But I feel really good about this budget. And it's positioned the district into a positive direction. We have a plan to move forward.
So, Brian, did you have any other introduction or highlights that you wanted to?
I mean, I could walk you through.
Yeah, if you want to come up
And we talked about this, you remember, last month, and I said it would shift and change some, but mostly shake out right around what we thought it would, and it did. But I can highlight some of those changes for you. And then there is an MSOC disclosure tool that the state is now requiring that I will share with you as well.
it's a message to the legislature.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah, they said they wanted it, but they're.
No, those, you really, those numbers really paint the picture.
So I start with this is the report that was sent. It's the budget summary. I think it's small up there. Sorry. I mean, probably too large here.
There we go. But essentially it's all of the funds there, and you'll see that, if I can move over a little bit. Sorry, everybody. Okay, there we go. So you see general fund on the left, ending fund balances are there in the middle. And the over under is right here. So we're over 43,080. ASB projected to go over a little bit in their budget, but they still have a healthy fund balance. Debt service is going down, and we will no longer need debt service like we talked about because we're closing our LGO. And then the capital projects fund will gain a little bit, and that's in anticipation of some larger projects later on down the line. In transportation vehicle, again, we don't intend to spend the entire 640. It's just there just in case that bus doesn't come in as anticipated, and it did not arrive yet this month.
Yeah.
So
Tell them to hurry up.
yep. So that's why that looks the way it does.
Mhm.
Questions on that before I move on?
Does that show our projected end fund balance for next school year? Is that the 43,000?
No, that's the over under.
Over under, okay.
The projected ending fund balance is here at 535,937.
Okay.
And I can show you the same sheet that I showed you for the last budget review. I can show you that next, but it's a comparison of what we reviewed already, so what you're very familiar with, and then the updates to it.
Right. I see, so the the new binding conditions just say your ending fund balance has to be $1 better than your beginning fund balance, and we're $43,000.
Yes, the new binding conditions, and that, thank you for reminding me to state that for the public. The new binding conditions, number 5 was changed. It used to say by the end of next year, we should get to a 4% fund balance. It now says that we present a budget here and now and adopt a budget that has revenue over expenditures greater than 0. So not even $1, just greater than 0.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, all right.
Yep. So we've done that, or we're doing that now. And we were working together with OSPI to make those binding conditions reasonable for the district to minimize the impact on children. They're giving us the extra time because of their confidence in us, as they state in that letter very clearly. They're confident in the district's ability to do this and get through this. So therefore, they're granting us an extra year, changing the conditions to what we can meet this year and giving us that gift of time so that it's less impact.
Brian, does the beginning fund balance for this budget include, so the numbers that we recently saw on safety net, approximately $500,000, if I recall right, is that reflected here?
It is not. So to get to the budgeted beginning fund balance, what I did was take the actual budget that Steve had put together for last year, and that one had a beginning fund balance of just over $1 million, $1.1 million. And then after year end, that ending fund balance went up to 1.6. So I took the budgeted ending fund balance that was for this current year's budget and added the difference between the beginning fund balances. So it really is just from the budget, it's not necessarily from the actuals. The actuals are looking better.
Better than these numbers.
Better than the budget, yeah, and better than we expected, but also lots of expenses are coming in. We're getting our final bills for audit, for legal, for running start, which is a significant bill. Our utility bills are coming in. So I didn't necessarily want to make an estimate on the end because we're not even at the end yet.
Right.
So I just use the budget number. But to your point about safety net, no. There's in the budget was $300,000 of safety net. And Ian has worked hard and diligently to get us another safety net award for an extra 230. Is that correct? For community impact? Yeah, yes, 230. Yep. $230,000. Yes. Yep.
So what, in your mind, what are the biggest risks to us not getting revenue to exceed expenses next year?
Well, as Russ pointed out, it's a fairly conservative budget. So I think the major risks are loss of leaves of absence. We do have a fairly young staff, which means lots of people going out on maternity and paternity leave. We already have a few of those scheduled for next year's health-related leaves. Those all essentially double up a staff cost. So that's one. I think it will be challenging to stick to our plan, but if we do stick to our plan, I think the risk is low overall.
Okay.
Because the numbers are low. The numbers are conservative, I should say that, including the timber revenue, including enrollments. And we did that on purpose.
Right.
So I think there's a better chance of us looking better again
Yeah.
next year than we're
Okay.
budgeted.
And so
And-
our best opportunities to do better are related to the number of students,
Enrollment
enrollment.
is a major factor.
Okay,
Yep, so again, we are starting low. We could end up there. It's a reasonable estimate. It's not an unreasonably low estimate.
Yeah.
But if we do end up there, I don't think we'll end up any lower. Whereas this year we were budgeted slightly lower, and so the revenues that were anticipated were slightly higher than what we were actually receiving. So yes, enrollment is our best hope for doing better than what we're looking at. Timber revenue is also, a good shot, but also it's a long session with the legislature. I know you guys have heard me say it again and again, but, engaging with our
Mhm.
elected officials is going to be incredibly important. We've continued to do that. They're getting stuff from me and from our districts.
Mhm.
I know that there are community members engaging because they're reaching out to me and saying, hey, I want to do this, but can you look this over? And I greatly appreciate that. So,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, we definitely don't want to build a budget around that kind of hope, but.
Nope.
But I do think it does point to the value of those efforts.
it's my other thought is if somehow we are able to do much better than 43,000, then kind of keep the pedal to the metal, so to speak, knowing that every dollar in addition to that is a dollar that helps us meet our fund balance requirement for the following year.
right.
Speaking of that, I do have a question, just a clarification for
Yes.
folks. So we're getting an extra year
Correct.
and changed conditions for next year. But by the end of the following year, so 25-26, are we still to get to the 4% fund balance by that point?
Yes,
Okay, so we're still going to get that healthy fund balance. We just get an extra year to do it
correct.
and some mitigating steps in between
Mhm.
the coming.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, OSBI and the ESD have been a great partner in this. We said before, they want us to be successful. So in this case, they actually moved the goalpost so that we can be successful based on everything we've done and the fact that we lost 3% in regionalization. They're really starting to look at that and recognize that was an added challenge, and that asking us to get to 4% was not what they want to put us through. So
And again, this is to help mitigate the impact to students
correct.
Yes.
above and beyond anything else.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that's a really good point, Daniel, that we are taking the extra time, we're doing it in such a way that it is designed to mitigate impact to students. I think if we did it in a manner just to accomplish the original binding conditions, we wouldn't be able to do it without very noticeable impact to students. So I think we're giving us the right amount of time to get things in the right order.
I guess, I know it's a year away, but I'm just starting to think about like, how much more challenging is it to get that fund balance up to 4% versus, what we're trying to do this year.
We'll know a lot more about that in October. And I don't really want to spend a lot of time speculating on that now, because the beginning fund balance for this budget, at negative 579, may shift. Right, and right now it looks like it's going to shift for the better. I guess I say it will shift. And it's looking like it's going to shift for the better. So when that maybe goes up a little bit, we see the impact of all of our year-end bills, but also, all of our grants coming in. And then also we get our enrollment count in October. Then we'll know what a better estimate for those revenues will be. Before we know all of those things, thinking about how much we have to reduce or change our program is really a wild shot. Yeah, it's worth thinking about, and it's worth knowing that, I think Danielle had a good metaphor at a previous meeting of, we're going to have to continue to squeeze, but we're not going to be continuing to wring like we had to do, this one time.
Okay.
So, yes, expect that continued squeeze to happen,
Okay.
especially as enrollment continues to decline.
Yeah.
Right? If that changes, then a lot changes.
But Brian, you're telling us that this budget that you put forward is your best guess at this moment at a very conservative, worst case scenario.
It's tight, yes. And so we started with some pretty conservative revenue estimates. And then made the expenditures work, and it's going to be tight to stick within those expenditure fence posts, but that's what we're setting.
I would think of it as a likely worst case scenario rather than a very worst.
Got it.
So it's a reasonably worst case. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
when we get an astroi hit the earth and our worst case scenario changes. But this is based on multiple years of experience, based on a careful analysis of all the major impacts to it. I think you've come up with a budget that is conservative, reasonable, and puts us in the right direction to accomplish our longer term goals. We still have more work to do to rebuild the fund balance, but I think this gives us a solid foundation to build on to do that.
Brian, do you know off the top of your head, I know we talked 4% fund balance, and I know that's a bit of a flex number, but is there a rough dollar amount that we can,
About 1.2 million.
about 1.2 million?
Yeah. And two things I do want to mention first, just backing on that, the board policy is still 5%, which is higher than that. But 4% was a reduced target given by OSPI. To get out of binding conditions, they want us to get at least 4%. So 5% is about 1.8, closer to. But it's also based on expenditures. So the more we lower that expenditure number, the lower that fund balance percent goes based on the expenditure, not the revenue. And just going back to what Russ was saying, I do want to say that I did not do the budget myself. Been working with the team here and with OSBI.
Right, yeah.
So I don't want to take all the credit for it.
Right,
I just
no.
want to, say.
And I
we're
think
working
you
in
had a
partnership.
pretty solid review at the ESD level.
Yes, they were, yes. It was a very thorough review.
Just to put a little insight with the 1448, what did we finish the year at in enrollment? Do we know that?
Yeah, 1495 FTE.
1495. So if we can, I mean, just to put that number into perspective, possibly, let's say, start there or higher.
Yeah, we started at about 1530 this year.
That's what we started with.
And we dropped. So we're funded at the annual average of that FTE, and they take that number, the FTE, every month. So the annual average FTE, it's just in my report for later, but I think it's 1506. We're funded at 1506, have 1498 enrollment, and we're budgeted at 1536.
So remember, we have, we're funded on FTE, average FTE, but we have two numbers that we look at. We look at head count, which is much higher because that counts running start and all those students. And then FTE is the number of students that actually are attending here and getting services through Mount Baker that accounts for the FTE, full-time equivalent.
So, Jason, to think about those numbers, if we started where we ended off and we start at, right around 1500 and the annual average FTE is that budgeted amount right around 1450, that would mean we would have to get from 1500 to well below 1448 to make the average there. Yep. So even if we start at 1498 and we end at 1448, which where we budgeted, the annual average would still be well up there in the middle.
Yeah.
So one thing to remember is that we have this small senior class, going out, about 70 kids. And so that's why we're holding on kindergarten to see how many kindergarten students we bring in. So it could be, that's the scale there. So we're hoping to have over 100 students, kindergarten students come in, which would increase that FTE.
As Danielle pointed out, we've seen that happened before and we've still seen slide. So we're, again, just being conservative in our estimates.
You can go on if you had.
Yep, this one we'll get through pretty briefly. It was shared with you guys, and I don't know why it's starting on that page and why it's not moving. Okay, well,
It's one of one, it shows.
my computer's it's one of one. Yeah. Okay, well, I printed wrong. My apologies. Let me just pull this one up. On Excel, all right. Okay, sorry about that. Go back, share. So this is what we looked at last time, and I thought it would be helpful just to go through this briefly because previously on the left was the current year budget, and then in the middle was the proposed budget. So on the left now is the budget that we've already gone through, fairly detailed at the last time we did this, and the right side just tracks the changes. So you'll see that property tax and excise tax in the newer budget have gone down a little bit, and that's just based on an updated levy tool. Gifts and donations have gone up because I was planning to move some of that cost out, but I decided not to. So I just left it there. The rest of it's pretty constant. Revenue for the pilot programs has gone down. That's the pass through for the national boards. So before it was higher and the expenditure was higher. When the actuals came into the staff plan, that's the actuals now. So it's a balance, revenue and expenditure on that one. Food services changed some. The new CEP stuff is tough to track, and I was working with OSPI on that. So that's gone up some. That's because that's a relatively new program. There was no way to budget for it through the budget forecast tool. So I worked with OSPI to get those numbers in. Impact aid is there. Federal forest went up a little bit. Still fairly conservative.
That's a big jump in impact aid.
Yeah, and that's because payments continue to come in. So at the time that I did this, I kind of rolled over the 160 number from last year.
Okay.
But the 254 is closer to what we had come in this year.
Okay.
And Sherry Reynolds did some very diligent work along with Ian to really capture all of the students, or as many as they could, that are part of the tribes. And so the number of students enrolled in that program has gone up some. So this is the current number. We expect to get a little bit more than that even next year.
So it's tribes, but it's also any person who works on or on national or federal property.
Yeah. And most of this is from our students that are enrolled in tribal or have tribal affiliations. So that has gone up, yes, but I do still think it's a conservative number. These title allocations were not updated from the state in the first look, so there's a rollover from last year. They are updated now, so those are actual numbers, allocations from the state. The Medicaid reimbursement, again, this is something that I rolled over and then I looked at the actuals, and that's more about what our actuals are. And the transfers. I actually got word from Bellingham. Actually, Nick pointed out that they had a transfer on their books that include the typical transfer from capital to general fund that we do every year can also include digital subscriptions.
Oh,
So,
okay.
excuse me. Nick pointed that out. I reached out to Catherine down there to talk to her about something we can capture a little bit more in that transfer. Expenditures, you see payroll went up. Some of the accounts payable stuff went down a little bit. And part of that is some staff shifting from contracted to being in payroll. And some of that is just a recognition of, in accounts payable, that's some of the contracts that we have on for, maintenance, technical related stuff. And we have to just make reductions. So some of that stuff we just maybe won't do.
Question.
Excuse me.
When somebody retires, those retirement benefits get handed off to the state or some type of retirement agency, or they continue as part of ours?
I think it depends on their age of retirement. But I don't know.
Like, I mean, after they retire, if it keeps coming out of our budget,
What's that?
do you mean after they retire? does it-
Yeah, after they've retired.
No, it no longer comes out of our budget.
Oh, okay.
We pay for folks when they work for us.
Right,
Yep, and we're paying into their retirement account through the state,
right.
but as soon as they're no longer our employee, they are no longer our financial obligation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, there's the ending fund balance. And the big difference in that is because we're starting from a different place. In the original budget that was presented, it was the original budgeted number. This one's updated through the, after we did the year end F-196 last year. That makes the difference in the beginning fund balance.
Is that ratio of benefits to payroll pretty typical?
Yeah. And it's fixed by the state. There's nothing we can do about it. Where it gets skewed is if you have a lot of part-time employees, because there are some benefits we pay in full per employee, regardless of whether they're full-time or half-time. So if you have a whole bunch of half-time employees, your benefit costs could be a lot higher.
Particularly health.
Yes,
That's right.
yep, and we've tried to minimize that in doing our staffing plan. Okay,
Questions on the expenditure side?
okay, I've got a few more, just things to quickly move through. If I can get Zoom to cooperate here this time. I'll just share my screen and go through it here, okay. So here's, we'll go for the MSOC disclosure, because that one I think is funny. This was, so the legislature said, okay, we're going to give you an extra $31 per student or whatever it was, because they heard our calls for how far we were underwater, right? And you guys have seen those reports. So they said, fine, we'll give you an extra $31 per student, but we want to make sure you're spending it on MSOCs. So
Okay,
they gave us this report, and now they're gonna get the report and say, we're still short $921,817. So they just wanna make sure we're spending it all on MSOCs, and then, you know what, I'm sure we're spending on MSOCs. Do you wanna see the report? You'll get it. So, they'll get it. Yep,
well, we can give them a report on the degree eating days.
and this is just an updated look at, the F-195F, this is the 4-year forecast. So you see, this reflects at the bottom our fund balance goals, right? So for this budget, it just says, don't go any lower. This budget says get to 4%. And then I ran it out knowing that the board would want to get back to their board policy, 5% or a little bit over. So these are the numbers that I submitted to the state. ESD's reviewed them. They think they're reasonable to have given us authority to adopt. Okay. Any questions on the 4-year forecast? Okay. Well, thanks for bearing with me. I want to make sure you guys had the full
Very
picture
good.
before you move to adoption.
Any other general questions on the board resolution adopting the budget before we go through that? If not, I entertain a motion to approve board resolution 23-24-22. The 2024-2025 budget.
Motion to approve resolution 23-24-22. Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Thank you, Brian. Yeah.
Brian.
And Bill. And everyone else who contributed there. Next up is schedule of compensation benefits and other information between non-represented certificated staff exempt and Mount Baker School District. And Phil, if you want to introduce this.
Sure, these are the three cabinet members, basically teaching and learning, special services, and finance director. So it's a summary of benefits for the non-rep staff, and we've done comparables with other school districts. We're pretty close to the bottom of the other school districts with that, but they are competitive salaries. And that's where we are.
And the only change since we last looked at it are what was it, sick leave buyback, vacation buyback?
Vacation buyback.
Vacation
So,
buyback.
yeah, so we've increased that 5 days. Our staff they're just working hard. And not able to take the vacation that they are currently available to do that at 5. And I was surprised it was 5 because the district I came from, the other districts I came from, it was 10. So it brings us in line with other districts are doing.
So any questions on this contract? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the schedule of compensation benefits and other information between non-representative certificated staff and Mount Baker School District. You could say motion to approve said motion.
Motion to approve said motion.
Ooh, I like that.
Let Tammy clean it up. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Next is Mount Baker Policy 2255, Alternative Learning Experience Courses. So we have some changes to the language of that policy.
Yeah, pretty much. It's 2255. Bridget is keeping track of this, brought it to us, and so it's updating language, it's reporting requirements around CEDARS, talks about weekly contact required for students that are in the ALE program, Alternative Learning Experience Program. We do get 90% funding for students that are in this program, so you want to try to gather and recruit as many students as we can. We are expanding our program to the high school next year so that we can maybe retain some of the students that are looking at other ways for their school around online. So if we create an online program and have somebody monitoring that, working with that, I think we'll retain more students, but it's just updated language around this policy so that we can do that.
So I had a chance to read any questions of this policy?
We don't actually have any courses right now. This is just to lay the foundation to have those type of courses.
Yeah, we do have courses based on the Edgenuity program that we have. There's
Okay.
I don't know, up to 20 or 21 total courses so students can go through and take courses through ELA, social studies, math, other courses on top of that. But we chose not to list those courses in the policy because there's just too many.
Okay. So this is, sorry, I don't know anything about this, but it's an online, these are online courses students can take.
These are online courses that students
In
can
addition to the courses that we have in the classroom.
Yeah, we actually have Edgenuity this year that students are taking online courses to help recover credits that they've lost. So we're just expanding this program and for students that may not want to attend school in person, they can attend online. So we as an alternative learning.
So is it,
Bridget, do you have anything else to add to that?
So we already have in place the K-8 Mount Baker Academy. So that's established. What we're adding in for next year is the 9-12 for our students who are most at risk, our impact students who are, perhaps on that bubble of not being able to graduate. So it's a very, in a sense, curated program to pull those students back into our campus and to continue their learning with the ideal hope that they could come back to brick and mortar if that is a fit for them. But during our summer school right now for high school, that PR, those conversations are happening with the teacher. Scott Mann will be the summer school teacher as well as will be the teacher of record for the fall and for next year. So it's exciting, but the goal isn't to fill an online program. We really want to have students who are this is the best fit for them. They'll still fall under the graduation requirements as well.
So it's a Mount Baker teacher leading the.
The Mount Baker teacher, Scott Mann, will be, yes, he'll be interacting. There's student learning plans that have to be written for every student. So it's not just like, oh, I'm gonna go online. There's weekly contact. And if there's not adequate growth, there's an intervention plan. And if that intervention plan doesn't take hold, doesn't have the right outcome, then there's a hard conversation about, is this the right program or not? So it is very much still connected with a person, with our whole high school team.
Right.
And Scott provides strong support. So it's an assisted online program, so that which I think can bring great benefits to students who are maybe teetering a bit, and continue to have that in-person, okay, on task. Is there something that's preventing you? Those sorts of questions. I think it provides that ability, and it's something we haven't gotten into, the going past 8th grade, but I think it's I applaud the direction. So I think it has some merit to give it a shot.
I'm sorry, how many students were in that program last year?
In the K-8,
Oh, so this is new for the.
this is
ninth
new,
Yeah, this is
and
in
we
addition to the
just
K-8.
received
Okay,
approval today from the state.
okay.
We had about 30 students in the K-8 program, so. It'd be- yeah.
And many of our 8th grade students and families are like, oh, what do we do now? So now we
They
really
can
have
roll
a
up
nice
into,
through
yeah.
line for them.
Mhm.
So this program has the potential to positively impact our graduation rates,
Yes.
our enrollment rates, and subsequent funding that comes with that.
Right.
As well as make a more seamless transition for those kids from 8th grade on.
Mhm.
Any further questions on this, on policy 2255? I'm gonna suggest that we approve this for first and final reading. I don't think the changes are substantive enough to hold off on approving it. So I entertain a motion for first and final reading policy and approval of policy 2255.
Motion to approve policy 2255, first and final reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. So, Director of Finance report, so you've another chance at it, Brian?
I'll be quick.
I like that.
I'll be. Sorry, I had everything ready and put up and then my computer crashed. So, recovering now. Open it up. Okay, so just two things, and you guys have seen the binding conditions letter. It will be posted on the website tomorrow, and I'll highlight it in the community report that I put out after the board meeting every month. But just for the benefit of any public listening, we're changing the binding conditions. We work with OSPI to do that. An extra year to get to 4%, and the budget that the board moved to adopt today is meeting the new binding conditions.
Can I ask you, you said community report you do after every meeting, where and how does that go?
I push that out. Are you not getting that?
Not, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I push out a finance report through the same email system that we use for other communications, and I put it out to all community, all students, all parents.
Yeah,
And
I
I
don't
I put it in your weekly updates as
you
well.
put it, I'm sure I've seen it, but I just didn't know like how the community got it.
Yeah, so anybody who gets emails from the school, any school, gets it.
Cool.
I think I see it as a parent.
Yeah, I don't.
I get quite a bit of feedback on it too, quite a bit of good engagement. I think that what we learned from the budget tour, which I hope to not have to
Do again.
is that some proactive communication
Yeah.
would have been beneficial, and that's something that the community expects. So I've been
Yeah.
trying to work to meet that expectation by essentially after the board meeting, I spend Friday writing up into a bulletin everything that I have discussed
Yeah.
with you guys
That's
and
great.
then send it out. So,
Thank you.
happy to do it. Happier to do that than the tour.
We owe you a fund for that.
It's okay. So previously, the board had approved a loan from capital projects and general fund. In June this month, we fell short by over $330,000. So we did apply that loan. So those funds have been moved over. The interest rate for that is set by the county treasurer's interest earnings in their investment pool. So as long as we invest aggressively, which I intend to do, then we'll earn enough interest in whatever's invested to make most of our interest payments. And then the second portion there is what you discussed and passed earlier. Again, mostly just for the public benefit, I put that up there. LGO, $500,000. I will say that the treasurer have been very good partners in this, and as part of the meetings there that Nick and I were meeting with the treasurer and the deputy there, they indicated that they were prepared to support us, for years to come. So that if we did continue to need this, then they would be willing and willing partners to work with us on this. So we don't expect to even need it this year, but they will be ready to support us just in case we do. Any questions on either of those?
Question?
Mostly things we've already discussed. Like I just put these in here for the benefit of the public.
So the investments of the loan proceeds, well, you have those invested, that's invested in a county fund, so it's limited to their available funds.
Correct. So we have cash and investment accounts with the county treasurer,
Right.
and the cash has to have enough money in it to make sure all of the checks, all the warrants that are out could be cashed. So we keep some in cash, but then the rest, if it's aggressively invested, will earn interest that will cover most of the repayment.
Because the word aggressive and county investment don't seem to jive for me.
Correct, but-
My definition of investment, of
Yes.
aggressive investment is different.
But our rate is set by their earnings.
Right,
So that's gonna match up either way.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how much we can keep in there. So
Yeah.
this month, next month, we won't have the full 1.6 million in there because we're short 330. But apportionment will come in high next month, and if we can push all that money into investments, then we'll be essentially a net wash.
right.
Yep.
Other questions? Thank you very much, Brian.
Of course. There's the fund balances for the month. You'll see capital projects go down next month again because 1.6 million is going out of it. Transportation vehicle is still up because we haven't received the bus. And debt service next month is also the payment out for our LGO. So those will all shift. There's the enrollment like we were talking about. So Jason, you can see the annual average FTE there, 1505.38, budgeted 1536.
What happened in March?
I don't know, but they came back in April.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a dip in March and they came back.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
So, yeah, next year, this hopefully will have the orange line under the blue. Yeah, fairly confident as well. There's our revenue tracking. Collected 25 million of 32 projected, or 25 and a half. And I should note that even in August, we won't have all of our revenue in yet because a major portion of our grant claims will be for the month of August we can claim. So we'll get it in September and then it will go back and retroactively.
So it's still as part of the 23-24 school year.
Correct. So we're paying salaries in August and then getting the grant claim reimbursement in September. So when you look at this in August, that won't be all the way up. And that's part of what happens in September and October when we do all that year end, when it gets messy and changes. And the same will be true for the expenditures. There will still be expenditures coming in through August that are part of the 22-23 school year. Let's see, we're going up there. Revenue comparison, again, that has some special revenue in it still, but we're getting more revenue this year than last year. That'll shift where the OSPI is taking back 500 and change thousand from the apportionment advance in June. And apportionment is low in June anyway, so that'll start to shift. There's the expenditure comparison. We are still spending less than last year. Good. And there's the revenue over expenditures. Sorry, I didn't take some of those numbers off like I usually do. But this month we spent significantly more than we brought in. And that's largely, if you look at the expenditures, actually, this one shows it more clearly, the expenditures are relatively stable. But the revenue you see spiked because of the levy collection and then dropped because OSPI knows we're getting levy collections in May and June. They give us very low apportionment in May and June. And then the state fiscal year ends at the end of June. So they get all their money for the next year and they give us 22.5% of our total yearly apportionment in July and August. So the overage of expenditure is not because we're spending more in this month, it's because of the mechanism by which OSPI funds us. All right. Any more questions?
Question on this chart?
Okay. All right.
Very clear graphs again.
Yeah, and we're getting used to it, right? So the more times we do it, the more it makes sense.
Yeah.
And you guys get them in advance. So yeah, I'll change everything for next year.
Well, if you find something better.
All right, thank you.
Good. Next up, the superintendent report.
So just very quickly here, just want to talk about some of the things that we've done over the last 6 months. And we passed 2 levies, we have successful bargains, we passed a balanced budget. The district's moving in a positive direction. We're moving forward with that. We did focus on teaching and learning, and we have a good team together. I'm gonna miss these guys. Not a lot, but I'll miss them. It's a really good team, and they're really smart, talented people. So just keep asking questions. They usually have the answer for you. But I just want to thank you and the board, all of you in the cabinet, for having me in. It's been a great experience, and I'm hoping that I was value added a little bit. So. And then today I also was able to go to my Rotary meeting today down in Cedar Woolley, and the speaker was our state treasurer.
Oh.
So I got to talk with him a little bit, and he's a politician for sure. But I talked with him a little bit about what his messaging is to our state legislators. So we got to know Steve and our county treasurer up here, which both they are working very well with us. So I asked him what the conversations that he is having with our county treasurers, because I knew they had a conference a couple of weeks ago, and Steve said they were going to go after him and talk with him a little bit about districts that are distressed, and so they did. So his answer was, and he knew Steve, our county treasurer, but his answer was that they have very positive hopes with our legislators. He feels our legislators are getting the message that school districts are in distress and that there has to be something done. And he talked about regionalization. He talked about MSOCs. So he's knowledgeable, which gave me a good feeling. But I was able to talk with him a little bit and just kind of tease that out. So back to our legislative platform, the more people we talk to that are associated with our legislators in any way, the better it's going to be. So school districts like us, we need to tell our story. We are crawling out of it. We're getting there. Other school districts are not. But we also need help. And the help is from our friends in Olympia, our state legislators, and anybody associated to them that can talk about what's happening in our school districts. So Anyway, just wanted to pass that on too.
Very
So
good.
thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
So to start out our board discussion, we have a card for you.
Oh, thanks, Russ.
And we do gratefully appreciate your work here. I think you accomplished everything on the list when we started, and then to have such a good analysis of where we should head from. We didn't ask for that,
How to keep going.
but that will help us, that will guide us in the future in a way, and then, and your willingness to help mentor our leadership. Those are all, very significant and meaningful things. So, I think, we're, at least, from my standpoint, we're very, very pleased with this, with the relationship. A couple little gift cards there to bring you back, to know that you're always welcome within the bounds of nothing. So you have to come up to our local restaurants to spend them, so.
It's one of my favorite restaurants, to be honest with you.
I will tell you, I asked Jeff Jewell from the photo archives of Washington Museum if he had an old photo of a crevasse rescue on Mount Baker. That's what I wanted to find. If anybody's a mountaineer, that's one of the worst things that happen to you is falling into crevasse. Hardest thing to do. So if you rescue a mountaineer from the bottom of a crevasse, you've really done something. At least that's my.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And Acme Diner is one of my favorite places. I've already talked to Nick a little bit. If he wants to meet up at the Acme Diner, we can do that.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to last Thanksgiving when it seemed like things were really bad and working through that and having you come in and help us. It's been great. It was a pretty scary spot there, and we really lucked out to have you. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
6 months targeted wisdom.
SDI, we call that. That's for Ian.
It's gonna impact us, right? It's gonna impact us for the positive for much longer than you were here. So thank you.
Thank you.
So for I think for our board discussion to build on this, both, lessons learned and what have you learned, what does leadership look like? And so that as we, we're going into this year with Nick as an interim, and then we'll fairly soon start that search process for our next superintendent. What are some of the things we go away with from this experience, and what we might look for, what qualities in leadership? So I'll start with you this time, Jason, if you.
I think what we're looking for, a lot like Phil moving forward, right? He came in with the experience, knew what we had to do right out of the bat, worked well with Nick and Brian and the whole group to do that. We seen it on the slide that we were saving money still today. Well, that was all saving stuff that wasn't budget. That was just watching and tightening the reins and watching what we were buying, what we were doing and stuff like that. And that's a fair amount of money saved right there. So, I think looking at leadership moving forward, keep that same look. People that are always looking ahead, not staying comfortable where we're at, looking ahead, see where we can save and stuff like that. And like this group already is. So I think just keep moving ahead with what we have. Personally, what I've learned from Phil in this 6 months and everything else has been great. And so I just think we got to keep looking ahead, not get comfortable, not get sidetracked, and always know that there's not problem, but we know we have couple more years where we're really gonna have to watch it. So and I think we all know that, the group of people know that, and that's what we need to look at going ahead, is someone in that same thought process.
Well, I don't really like getting the board discussion topic right before.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
So I have
I
not had
really
time to
feel bad
reflect
about
on
that.
this, so
I
I don't have a lot
I intended
to
to
say.
get it out quickly. I didn't.
So go to Ed.
No,
I'll have something to say.
I'll keep trying.
Thank
I
you.
have had very few minutes this week.
I'm not good on my feet like that. I need reflection.
I think the words that come to mind are integrity and communication. Superintendent's under a lot of pressure to kind of satisfy or work with a lot of different groups, interest groups. And you really got to stay the course and do what you say you're going to do and not play favorites one way or the other. I think you need a lot of integrity to manage that. So you don't have to remember, what's the saying? If you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said, right? So you're consistent, and the communications obviously very important so that people aren't surprised, even if it's bad news. You gotta, be upfront and work with people. I think it's good for a superintendent to have a background in education, to kind of know what people are, what those challenges are in the classroom, and have some credibility with principals and the staff. I appreciate that Phil was out walking around the schools, talking to kids, part of the school, getting out of the office, going in there. I think that helps build relationships with everybody, not just the leaders, but all the people that work in our schools. So and leading by example, right? Putting the time in, working hard, and people can see that they're willing to work hard because our leadership is working hard. So
I think like Ed said, going on, getting out there in the schools is probably, you see it a lot for the kids too, right? The kids see the main person out there walking around at their sporting events and stuff like that. That goes a long ways. Yeah.
yeah, but
I will add a couple of things. Everything that was said was fantastic. I think Brian talked earlier about proactive communication. And I saw you modeling it to us, Bill, even as board members, right? Proactively telling us a weekly report of what's going on, if there's a situation happening, sending us messages to our phones and reaching out and making sure that we weren't surprised by anything. And I think that proactive communication is about respect for the people that you work with, and it comes with a degree of humility that I'm not top down. I'm working together with a group, and that to lead people, you don't get to just tell them where to go and expect them to follow. And so that awareness that I need to proactively tell people so they have time to process and think about and give feedback is that distributed leadership model that you've been talking about for a long time, Phil, or sorry, Russ. It's that distributed leadership model that you've been talking about. And it's how you lead people as a collective and not as an individual that sees yourself above other people. And I think you've modeled that really well to us, and that inspires confidence in the people that you're working with. It inspires trust. It inspires transparency, and those are all things that we really needed to see a good model of. And so I think that's something that has been on my radar the last 6 months.
you. Yeah, I think, I agree that the core is integrity. That definitely, and I think also calm and focus at the same time, so you get a lot done, but never look frazzled. And I think that a good leader is like that pay good attention to the big picture. And I think, most of your final thoughts here are those core areas, the big picture, what we should be looking for, what we should be thinking about, what we should be preparing for to advance in the future, and some details about the septic inspection, which also is very important, particularly in a small district like ours, that you have the ability to focus on the big picture, but also make sure that the little picture gets done and done right. So I think, there's the bargaining. I think I mentioned before, in the time I've been on the board, we've never completed our bargaining this early with this little drama. And I think we the bargaining team did a good job at it, but it was also that calmness and focus, so that everyone, it didn't spend a lot of time just wandering off in the bushes, but got to the core areas and figure out how to solve. I really appreciate that you've looked under the hood of our operations, both academically and the physical plant, because we've needed that, and I think you've brought in that pair of eyes that really helps us see, like I said, with your considerations, but across the board, and academics is very important focus that you've had a chance to really see what our practices have been and how we might approach them. So I think having a good example of leadership sets a standard in our minds and gives us quite a bit more to hold on to as we look for our next leadership direction. So I really appreciate this opportunity to see in practice what that looks like. And then the other thing, you worked with each board member. I think meeting with each of us individually, and I think that really helped all the board members be part of that team, of that board superintendent team. I think that's a critical part of that very key relationship. I think the superintendent's the only employee of the board. It's our only way to really interface with the district as a whole, and I think that having that team so functional has really been a great experience for us. Yeah, we appreciate you coming out of retirement. Hope your wife's still okay with this.
She's okay.
But you're, like I said, you always have a home up here. Thank you.
I'll stop by once. And you've got my number. I may not answer. Thank you, appreciate it.
The next, we've got meeting scheduled, our next meeting, July 11th. I don't think I have anything added to the schedule. Now, do you have something else, Nick, you wanted to?
Yeah, the one thing I brought up before you arrived, for some reason, the state auditor emailed myself and all of the board except for you. I'm not sure why you were left off, obviously an error, to have an exit meeting on July 3rd at 2 p.m. Something that's via Microsoft Teams, so it's gonna be a remote meeting. The only thing I was curious about is if there are board members who attend, whether or not we're gonna have 3 or more, so that we can advertise it correctly and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
I just wanna make sure you guys were aware of that.
but it missed me and I actually can't make that time. I have all my family here and I'm putting to work that day.
Good.
I figured my grandsons need to learn how to build
July
trails.
2 would be a Teams, yeah.
It'd like to be on Zoom, because Steve doesn't work well for us, so they've been willing to hop on my Zoom.
Okay,
So are you able to, Ed?
I think I can, yeah.
Anybody else want to?
If somebody else wants to go, so we don't have to worry about.
It'll be
quorum.
teams, so you don't have to go anywhere.
No, I mean, if somebody else wants to attend, so we don't have to worry about a quorum,
Yeah,
that's fine, but I can if nobody else wants to. I went to the introduction one, so I'm fine if I missed this one.
so do you want to do it?
Danielle, do you wanna do it?
I'll do it.
Yeah,
Oh, you want?
I'll do
Okay,
it.
okay, good.
did you want?
No,
Didn't.
that won't have to work.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
there you go.
That's all I have for meeting schedule then, and then, we have no executive session this time,
Whoa,
so
nice.
no adjournment. Adjournment. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sign things before you leave.
Yes.
What
are you looking at?
Over and under.